Hey guys, Slynk here with another tutorial, and lately I've been thinking about granular synthesis. Now what is granular synthesis? Well, if you take a look at normal synthesis, like wavetable, frequency modulation, subtractive, additive synthesis, these types of synthesis begin with some kind of oscillator like a saw wave or a sine wave. That's where the tone generation starts. And then you have filters and whatnot. Well, a granular synthesizer is more like a sampler. You drop a sample in, but instead of playing the sample back normally at different pitches and whatever on the keyboard, a granular synthesizer will cut the sample up into tiny little slices called grains. And then you can play each grain at different speeds and different pitches, and you can pan this grain over here, that grain over there. You can layer a bunch of grains together in a stack and play them all at once. And the results that you get are crazy. They're super wild, and I want to show you how it all works. But we actually need a granular synthesizer to do those cool things. But luckily for us, Ableton has recently released the Grain Scanner, which is an awesome granular synthesizer made by Amazing Noises. It's pretty cheap too. You can get it on the Ableton website. I'll put a link in the description. All right, so let's drag a grain scanner in, and you can see right away we got 5 pages down the side, but this grains page is really where all the action is happening. Over here we've got our ADSR, pretty normal. Let's turn this up while we're here actually, the velocity sensitivity. And then we've got filter, distortion, reverb. Not a big fan of the reverb to be honest, but I'm really into the filter and the distortion. Actually, this exciter is pretty sweet. Let's turn that up. And then we've got our mod matrix and our mods, and this will be like our LFOs and stuff, and the matrix is where we're going to assign them to different parameters. And this is a cool little indication of what's happening with the mods. You can see like a visual representation. Anyways, the awesome cool grain stuff is on this grains page. This is where all the action happens. So I guess the first thing we need to do is record some kind of ridiculous sample to put in there, like, I don't know, Slynk grew a mustache, what the hell? That'll do, right? Slynk grew a mustache, what the hell? Let's turn that up a bit. Let's just throw that in here. We can kind of constrain the granulator to the area of interest. We've got silence on either side here, so we just drew like a little box around there. This is our start position, so if we set that to 0, it'll always start here. And now I'll just play a note. So you can see it's repeating this 80 millisecond section right at the beginning of the sample, and it's not going anywhere. And that's where the scan knob comes in to play. If we turn the scan knob up a bit, but you can see it slowly scanning across the whole sample. If we set this to 100%, Slynk grew a mustache, what the hell? Slynk grew a mustache. It'll play at like normal speed, as long as you're pressing the C1 key, but that's really determined by this key follow button here. If I turn that off, Slynk grew a mustache. I can push any key and it'll always play the sample at its original pitch. But if I turn this on,
Slynk grew a mustache, what the hell?
So we can mess with the duration, and this will change the size of each grain. So let's dial this down to like 20 milliseconds or so. Slynk grew a mustache, what the hell?
Slynk grew a mustache, what the hell? Slynk grew a mustache, what the hell? Slynk grew a mustache, what the hell? Slynk grew a mustache, what the hell? Slynk grew a mustache, what the hell?
And we also have this scanning direction. So once it reaches the end of our box that we drew, our start and length, it'll decide to do a few different things. It'll stop, it'll reverse directions, or it'll just start from the beginning again. So let's just go with start from the beginning again, and we'll mess with like the number of layers. So we can have multiple playheads going over the same situation here.
Slynk grew a mustache, what the hell? 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 Slynk grew a mustache, what the hell?
Then we can turn the panning variation up. Now these are like randomizers actually. Like let's say we want a 50% chance of a new grain starting or to scan across the sample. We can set it like that. And there's a 100% chance that it'll be panned wildly from the left or right. And then let's say like 30% of the time it'll start playing in reverse. And there's also going to be a amplitude variation of 20 dB. Slynk grew a mustache, what the hell? 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 Slynk grew a mustache. Now we can also change the position of the beginning of our playhead. And you can also randomize that position. So let's just set it to like half and half here. I'm going to try singing and throwing that in the grain scanner. That wasn't awkward at all. Now let's throw that in the grain scanner. Whoa. So, I don't even know what note that actually is. I'm going to use a tuner to figure it out. So I'm pushing a D and I'm getting like C sharp and a half. So I might just adjust the pitch here. There we go. That's basically a D. Let's put some reverb on here too. Sounds cool. So that's kind of cool, actually. That's actually a useful sort of sound. Yeah, wow, that's super lush. And it's surprising to hear that when this is what I sang. You can see that it's much more than a sampler. You can actually get some crazy and useful results. All right, let's try using the grain scanner in a more of a effect type of way. I'm going to record my voice again. I've got this song, I think I did it in a tutorial or something at one point, and it sounds like this. Anyway, what we're going to try and do is come up with like a little vocal to go right before this drop. So let me just record something here. Caterpillar stash. Yeah, that'll work great. Caterpillar stash. Maybe I can warp this a little better.
Caterpillar stash.
Yeah, all right, that's perfect. Okay, we'll drag in our sample into the grain scanner and we'll turn the velocity sensitivity up. Yeah, so the idea is to have this right on the drop here, so it's going to be like
Caterpillar stash.
All right, we're going to do some measuring here. When you select an amount of time in Ableton, you can see it down. Well, I can't move my mouse over it, but it's right. It's going to be right here. So just put your eyes there. See how it says 234? That's 234 milliseconds. So if we actually set the duration of our grain size to match that, 234 milliseconds. We set the layer to 1. Now we should be playing at the same tempo. But what we haven't talked about yet is the grain window. Now there's all these different sort of shapes that we can give at each grain. This is kind of like a, I guess, volume of each grain. And you can see it kind of fades in and fades out with this panning window. But there's this one, which is more like a saw wave. Oh my god. Yeah, this is sick. Okay, I'm just gonna put this note in here. And we'll automate this layers bit here to go from 60 to, let's edit that value to just 1.
Caterpillar stash.
Make it a little bit longer, yeah? There we go.
Caterpillar stash.
I just had a good idea here. Let's put a new channel in. I'm going to set this to resampling and let's just record some of this song. Let's put that in the grain scanner. Oh, that's so cool, actually. I feel like I want it to play more of the sample, though. What's happening? Yeah, let's go 469. That could make a pretty cool drop as well. Oh, I think you gotta sort of put a new MIDI note in there, and then it'll work a little bit better, like more on time.
5 minutes later.
Caterpillar stash.
Cool. Let's try something like this. I don't even know if the mic picked that up. Okay, there's definitely some hum in the background. Let's clean that up first. We'll use reduce ambience preset here. It's basically just like a multi-band gate, which works really well. We can just freeze that, flatten, and let's toss it in the grain scanner. See what we can do with this. Maybe it'll work better with a different shape. We can EQ it a little bit. Maybe we change the amp variation as well. And the panning, that'll give it some more like creepiness. Again, I'm not really a fan of this reverb inside here. We'll use a regular Ableton reverb, probably sound a little better. Yeah, I mean, you could really use this to design like video game sounds. Like maybe there's a creepy sewer level in your game and you need to, I mean, I just made that in 10 seconds, you know, like otherwise you got to go out into an actual creepy sewer and like record with the field recorder. And I'm kind of synthesizing it, you know? Now it sort of sounds like I'm pouring a glass of water or something, almost. Let's put it into something else. Like, what about like if we put that sound into a corpus? I've been recording this whole time and I kind of forgot that I was making a video and started just screwing around because this is so much fun. But let me try and explain what's going on here. I just come up with this cool sound. So this original sample we dropped in with me just going in there. I've managed to sort of set up a really, really tight loop using 0.8 CYs, whatever that is. I'm guessing cycles, like wave cycles. So that's like really, really short. But the cool thing is I've got key tracking on, so this kind of duration changes whenever I change the note. So I can change the pitch independently of the duration of the grain. So you can kind of hear what's going on there. And then I decided to add a corpus, and I've used the MIDI information that I'm getting from the same MIDI channel by selecting it here. And then that's transposing the, I guess, resonance pitch. So as you can see, you can get a lot of different types of sounds out of that just by messing with the duration and the pitch. And you know what? I think we'll even dip into the mod matrix a little bit. I don't know. There's a bunch of different options here. Sample and hold. What the heck? Let's use that. We'll set it to say quarter notes. Sure. And then we'll use mod 1 to mess with, what should we mess with? The duration. Yeah, totally. And we'll get another mod going. Yeah, let's make it a really slow sine. Yeah, that's cool. And we'll just set that to the pitch. Mod 2. It's almost like the pitch has become the filter. It's really bizarre. Well, I'm sitting here editing the video and I'm going through the clips that I've recorded, and there's just large 20-minute chunks of time where I'm not talking at all. And I've got this blank face on. I'm just like twisting knobs in a trance, like totally having the time of my life. I was really struggling making this video because every time I'd have another idea, I would just like go off on a tangent and start doing something completely different and just forget that I was even making a video. So I guess that's kind of a testament to how interesting granular synthesis can be and how deep it goes. And definitely the grain scanner makes granular synthesis really easy. And I guess the fun in granular synthesis is really in the samples. What sample you put in there can really change where you go, what direction you head in your sound design journey. So definitely try a bunch of different weird samples. I was really having fun with recording my own voice and just recording stuff around the studio, banging stuff together, whatever. I've got a slide whistle over here. That was pretty fun as well. Again, a link in the description for the grain scanner, and I really hope you enjoyed this video. Peace.
So let's do the dance.